President Trump defiant about trade and roiling the market. New insight tonight into why. As we watch a tale of two presidencies and two White Houses. One is a White House under siege. The other plowing through an aggressive agenda. So while veteran reporter Carl Bernstein and others paint a picture of a White House in chaos,
there is now a subtext that people in the White House will say to you, it is unclear to them whether Donald Trump can effectively govern, whether he's capable of it in terms of his own abilities, conduct, and whether or not things have gotten to the point where the wheels are coming off of this presidency.
It's not clear who has authority or what authority.
Woodward and Bernstein, but there's also this side of the coin, which is rooted more on the policy side. Senator Joe Manchin was asked if the way that this president is doing things is leading to a more productive White House.
I think it's the more transparency, the more openness. You can see a person who's willing to engage and talk about it. He's not afraid to say, hey, maybe the people who have supported me before might not like my position, but I think it's where we should go as a country. That's your leadership. That's what you're supposed to do. And that's what he's showing right now with.
So which is it? And can they coexist as the president fends off the Russia investigation and simultaneously begins planning his re-election campaign? In moments, we'll talk to Bill Bennett. But first, on another day of huge developments, let's analyze what's going on with Mark Thiessen, who worked in the George W. Bush White House and is a Fox News contributor, and Philippe Reines, a former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton. Good to see both of you tonight.
Good to see you, Martha.
Very different situations portrayed. I mean, you can flip around the dial and think that you're living basically on two completely different planets, Mark.
Yes, absolutely. And look, both things can be true. There can be chaos in the White House, and the president can be racking up incredible accomplishments. In fact, I think it's demonstrably true that both things are true. If you look at his first year of accomplishments, it really is quite remarkable. I mean, first comprehensive tax reform in 30 years, biggest regulatory rollback in American history, the economy booming. You've got in foreign policy, he's driven ISIS out of its caliphate. He's reversed Obama's withdrawal from Afghanistan. He enforced Obama's red line in Syria, was something he wouldn't do. You got Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. I mean, the accomplishments are there. But at the same time, I think it's also obvious that there's chaos in the White House. We're going to be on our fourth White House communications director in 1 year. And we may be on our third national security advisor in 1 year. So if he's doing this much with this much chaos, imagine if there was no chaos, how much he'd accomplish.
So Philippe, I guess it raises the question, which really matters more? I mean, some people work in a chaotic environment fairly well. I think the one person who doesn't seem all that ruffled by any of it is the president.
Well, first of all, Mark wins the Spin Award for that last comment.
Congratulations, Mark.
I think you're both right in the sense that, Martha, you had asked whether or not they can coexist. And I don't think they can. And I think while jokes aside, Mark is saying that imagine if he got his act together, there's no indication they would be. I mean, Mark himself worked at the beginning of the Bush administration. It is not uncommon for the first year of a White House or for an administration to have growing pains. That's not what this is. And this is also not governing by chaos. This is unintended chaos. And I don't think that that is serving the president or the American people well.
But then why? So how do you explain the fact that he's working through his agenda in a way that the people who elected him seem to be pretty happy with?
Well, look, I mean, I think you both know that I had the privilege of playing Donald Trump when Secretary Clinton practiced her debates. And the thing I said over and over again that drove her and everyone crazy was that on day one, I was going to pull us out of NAFTA. I was going to repeal Obamacare. It was something really beautiful. And we were going to have just an absolute wall. And I know that there are numbers from Heritage and from the White House itself, but he's gone 0 for 3 on the things that he promised the American people he would do on the very first day.
Who's got the Spin Award now, Philippe?
Mark, go ahead.
I think
I give you back the Spin Award. I give you back the Spin Award you just gave me. I mean, look, it's clear that he didn't get Obamacare done. But one of the reasons why we don't have a wall.
But they did repeal the individual mandate as part of the tax deal, which had a huge impact on it.
Nobody gets everything they wanted. As I recall, Barack Obama's promise was that he was going to pass comprehensive comprehensive immigration reform in his first year, and he didn't get that done. He did, and
so
in his case, in his case, he didn't try. So, I mean, look, I think it's very clear, to spin aside, that Donald Trump has accomplished a lot in his first year.
Let me ask.
But he's undermining. I agree with Philippe that he's undermining it. I mean, you've got there's so much leaking going on. I think the only people who haven't leaked from this White House are Barron and Melania.
And I'm not even sure that I could vouch for them.
But he sets that tone. He sets the tone.
I want to ask Philippe a question about, for instance, the gun issue, where the president has gone to the left of his constituency on this.
Yeah.
And, you heard Joe Manchin talking about how he's probably the only Republican who could kind of get away with finding some middle ground on this issue. So if you live in an environment where you want to see change on that front, is that something that you are pleased with in this presidency?
The problem is he's not going to get away with it, and the Democrats aren't the problem. If you watch the faces in the room yesterday at what I'll admit was an extraordinary event where the president said many things that I think Americans on the whole want to see in terms of gun control, they won't happen because the Republican Party...
The Republicans are saying if there's anybody who can make it happen, it's this president.
Well, someone hasn't told the NRA that, and someone hasn't told John Cornyn that, and someone hasn't told John Thune that. Look, I'd like to be sitting here in a month, and of all the things I'm wrong about, to say that the president actually achieved gun control measures that he's talked about. I think that's a very, very tall order. And I think, you're saying, who do we trust on these numbers? I think we have to trust our own eyes. And there's another element here. There's an element of not just what you're doing, but how you are doing it. And I think, most Americans, including most Republicans, don't like seeing the president acting out on Twitter every day. Most Americans, including most Republicans, don't like that his children and that his in-laws work in the White House. And again, I think he's his own worst enemy. And that's not a style of governing. And I think if you look at it,
well, Hillary Clinton worked in the White House in her husband's administration, so there's a precedent there.
Good points. You're both very good. I got to leave it there, though, guys. Thank you very much. Good to see you both tonight. So coming in now to join us, Bill Bennett, who worked for both the Reagan administration and also George H.W. Bush's administration. He's the host of the Bill Bennett podcast and a Fox News contributor. So, Bill, you heard the conversation, and it is like there are parallel universes going on, and people in the White House will admit that, there are folks who work there who are burnt out. I don't think that's completely unusual, that there is a lot of turnover. But I don't think that anybody anticipated that a Donald Trump White House was going to be a sort of, calm environment, given what we know about the way he works.
Yeah, well, up until the time of the campaign, the most famous utterance of Donald Trump was, "You're fired." And so we're seeing a fair amount of that going on. There are subtleties here. The poet E.E. Cummings says, "A great order can be a disorder." Think of that smooth, friendly, elegant, charming Obama administration for 8 years, not getting a lot done and getting a lot of negativity done in the country. Meanwhile, Cummings says, a disorder can create an order. As you pointed out, Martha, as you suggested, maybe there's some point to this, if not chaos, to this conflict, and it has a creative aspect to it. But we need to take it seriously. He can't have all the people who are most loyal to him leaving. But there's no question. I love the line from the Wall Street Journal today that said, "We disagree with Donald Trump in many things except for policy." Yeah. Well, that's a pretty big deal when you're president.
It's a fascinating sort of dynamic. And I think you hear it. I heard Ben Sass, Brett was interviewing Ben Sass. Brett went down a list of all these things. Said, "Do you agree with this? Do you agree with that?" "Yeah, I do. But I don't like the way that he does things." When you talk about the people who have left the White House, Anthony Scaramucci, who was one of the group who served as communications director, he was there for a very short time, lashing out. We're seeing a lot of lashing out from people who are no longer getting the access that they wanted. Just watch this. I want to get your reaction to this as someone who's worked in the White House twice.
Sure.
I see the fact that John has denied access to the White House of the president's strongest loyalists. There's a culture of intimidation, people afraid to talk to each other.
Coming from the president? They're afraid of the president?
No, I think it's the chief of staff.
A lot of people want to push out John Kelly, Bill. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think John Kelly fired him, didn't he?
He certainly did.
And
he admitted in that interview, to his credit, that was one of the reasons he's mad.
Yeah, and Anthony Scaramucci comes from a culture where, you settle your debts, and you settle your debts in public. I think what he's proud to say often is, I plunge the knife into you, but I plunge it into your chest. So, there's that going on, too. But let's look at the bottom line. I think the bottom line is the accomplishments. Mark ticked them off better than I could. A lot, both domestically and in foreign policy. The judges, ISIS, the economy, and so on. All these regulations. And the federal court bench is so important. But you can't isolate yourself forever, and you have to have a team. The amazing thing, it seems to me, Martha, hasn't been commented on, is he's doing this understaffed. Not only are people leaving, they don't have enough people at the White House. The cabinet departments are understaffed, partly the fault of the Democrats. But if as we heard earlier, you imagine what they could do with order, imagine what they could do with a full team.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting when you look at governing versus campaigns, right? And there's two different kinds of teams that you need in place. And I think that some of that is the struggle that we see going on with people who were longtime loyalists, who are now perhaps, leaving, and people who are better for governing. Well, not mentioning Hope Hicks there, because I think she was pretty well thought of all around. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, Hope Hicks, though. I mean, see, there's another thing. The media thing. Let me be politically incorrect. Hope Hicks served him very loyally. As you hear the story about Hope Hicks, they show one picture after another of Hope Hicks. It's like a model's portfolio. The woman is absolutely stunning, absolutely gorgeous. Can't comment on that, I guess, these days, but everyone knows it to be true. Actually, your colleague Ainsley commented on it. If she looked like John Sununu, she would not be getting this kind of attention in the media.
Or me. Maybe some truth to that.
John,
no, it's not to take away from what she has done, because, as I said, she has been really admired by everybody who worked with her. And we've worked with her, too. But I get what you're saying, and I think there's some merit to it.
I don't detract at all from her abilities. No, I'm not. But we know what's going on here, what the game is. So there's a lot of media hyperbole about this.
She's a fascinating character.